Alright everyone, the CDC's attempt to steal all the rental properties in the United States, other than those that are run by BlackRock, has failed once again. In what was almost a foregone conclusion SCOTUS decision, they reiterated their prior opinion, which was, hey, no, the CDC indeed cannot unilaterally tell people who have rental properties you're not allowed to evict people for lack of payment, for dereliction, for destruction of property and stuff. That's just not a power that the CDC and the executive branch are vested with. Now, Biden, first and foremost, should be impeached and removed for this. This was a blatant disregard for the Constitution. He saw the SCOTUS decision. He knew that at least 5 justices would. They made it clear they would vote against the CDC being able to do this, and yet he openly encouraged, and as their boss, that's coercion, encouraged the CDC to restore it, despite the fact that the only thing that the SCOTUS allowed the CDC to do was allow it to take its course because it lapsed in less than a week from their decision date anyway. They said, well, there are funds there, we'll give you the next week to disperse them, but you can't do this again, it's unlawful. Bunch of landlords sue when the CDC restores it. Lo and behold, it gets before SCOTUS, link in the description archived of course, and they find, as they initially found, which is, hey, you can't do this. Make legislation, make an actual law regarding this, and then we can talk. By the way, I'm not even convinced that an actual piece of legislation would stand up to judicial scrutiny. They're just saying, hey, it's clear that this goes so far beyond the pale, it's obviously unconstitutional. Now, first and foremost, if you're watching this video on YouTube, keep in mind there will be a pinned comment down below with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. I make 2 exclusive videos a day on those platforms that you will not see on YouTube. That's because YouTube no longer allows edgy political commentary on the same level, and certainly there's no semblance of free speech with regards to medical issues. Also, their algorithms favor people that make less videos now instead of more. Kind of topsy-turvy to what YouTube was a decade ago. Anyway, this is good. This is a good decision. And to all the leftoids screeching and reeing about it, keep in mind, the average landlord in the United States, landlord doesn't mean that they own a bunch of condominiums and rent them out. Landlord means they're renting at least one property. Well, that can be a little old lady on a pension who says, I can't get by on my pension, so I'm renting out, one of the suites in my house. This could be some small towner that has like a couple properties left them by their uncle or something. Certainly it encompasses a lot of people who rent a room or a little section of their house in order to make a little bit of money because prices and shit are so high they can't get by otherwise. Very common, especially in urban settings. Also in very, very rural areas. You have some old farmhouse, couples getting older, and they're like, we'll get one of those crazy hipsters living here who's willing to pay through the nose because they got a trust fund and they can use the barn as their art shed or something and shit on a canvas, and we'll be able to keep the farm, We don't have any animals anymore, but we can watch the crabgrass grow and seed into old age. SCOTUS made the right call. The funny thing is, though, the Democrats are now calling SCOTUS far-right extremists. Yeah, this incarnation of the Supreme Court with 4 diehard liberals on it, of which Roberts definitely is one. Several swing justices, including Kavanaugh, and like 3 actual conservatives, this is what they conceive of as being far-right. It's interesting, Kavanaugh, the far-rightist, okay, so he joins the liberals to let the moratorium play out. His first major decision was not taking up cases against abortion. Yes, far-right extremist, very extreme individual. But you see, the fact is that the Democrats in the legislature punted the issue, and Biden punted the issue. Biden decided to punt it to SCOTUS. SCOTUS, in turn, made it clear you need to craft legislation for this to even be considered to be constitutional. Even then, it would come up before judicial scrutiny. I still think in a 5-4, it would probably still be shot down. To be clear, I think either Roberts or Kavanaugh probably would strike down such a moratorium even if it weren't an example of executive overreach. Because I can't conceive of how the legislature would be able to in court, argue, yes, the legislator has the right to essentially temporarily seize property in the United States in order to quarter people there against the will of the owners, even with a lack of payment. I'm not seeing how specifically that could possibly be considered legal. But then again, these people are all lawyers. So, lawyers speak, wiggle words, weasel words, who knows. I don't think that it'll even be attempted, though. The Democrats in Congress didn't touch the issue. When the first decision came down, SCOTUS said you need to do the legislative thing, you know, what you're fucking paid to do. And instead of considering it, they went on vacation. A majority of Democrats just up and left. Well, they didn't want to solve the issue. Pelosi and all the others, they refused to force the convention of Congress, the reconvening of the House of Representatives to discuss the issue. And they could have. They have the votes in the House to pass such legislation. It would be difficult, I think, to get Manchin and Sinema aboard, and really that's what it's about. They were afraid that if they try to craft legislation to provide rent relief, to provide eviction moratorium, whatever form it took because of COVID, they were afraid that Democrats in the Senate would stop it. And therefore, they can't blame the evil far-right Republican Nazis in the SCOTUS. They can't blame Mitch McConnell. They can't blame Drumpf. They can only blame themselves. Yet another self-inflicted wound. I predict that over the next years, because the Democrats are so dysfunctional and so schismatic and fractious and have so many problems, they will punt as often as possible to avoid having to consider significant legislation. Infrastructure bill might be the end-all be-all of what they finally consider. After that, you might not hear much from the Democratic Party most of the time. They're going to try to hide Biden, and they do that anyway. He still has to be trotted out like a goddamn animatronic cadaver once in a while. Psaki comes out, gives her non-answers like we were ridiculing live last night. By the way, there were twice as many people watching me do that. Twice as many people watching me rant about Psaki cunting down ISIS, which was literally something that she said. I realize that was her slurring her words, but maybe she's becoming more like Biden, but it's still funny. Twice as many people watching that as the official White House stream. Not a huge surprise. I think anyone else, any other significant independent commentator can pull off the same, but, keep in mind, 80 million votes, 10 scoops of ice cream and shit like that. It really begins to get old and suspicious as a canard. SCOTUS made the right decision. And by the way, this is not going to lead to millions and millions of people becoming homeless. Dude, there's already rent relief money there. It's just not being accepted by everyone. Who cares? That's not the responsibility of the rest of the U.S. public. It's not my responsibility to care about the rental agreements that other people voluntarily entered into. The fact that COVID may have caused someone's job to go bye-bye, blame the government, because their lockdowns are what caused that. The virus didn't. The coronavirus did not cause meat manufacturing to shut down. People demanding that meat manufacturing be shut down because of the virus is the cause of that. You're putting the cart before the horse. COVID is just being used as a scapegoat at this point for political and social and fiscal dysfunction. That's who we should blame. So giving the state more power to fundamentally nationalize rental properties because the state caused a problem economically makes zero goddamn sense. And I would say this, if I were renting property prior to this decision comes along, moratorium's gone, I can now evict people. I would evict them all and I would stop renting out property. I would sell the property instead, and then I would downsize and I'd make the difference. And I'd say, well, for the next few, things will be fucky for the next few years, but at least I'll be eating. And paying less, by the way. And I don't have to manage any rental goddamn bullshit, because it's clear that the government wants to nationalize all rentals in the country. Or corporatize it. The only groups that'll be renting 10 years from now, I guess, if we continue this horse shit, will be groups like BlackRock. So you won't know your landlord. Your landlord will be living in Chennai or in Mexico City. They're not going to be living in your town, like it is the case in many cases. Many people who rent, landlords in the same fucking building. Even if it's a slumlord, at least they're there. You can still call up and call them a jack-off and complain about the pipes for the third time that week. Try doing that if you're in a BlackRock property. Oh, hey, yeah, my water main broke. Oh, yes, water main is broken. Very big problem. Too bad I'm literally, on a different ocean. Too bad I'm in a completely different time zone. Yeah, let me come right over. I'll make sure to call somebody, and then I'll nail your ass with the fees of the contractor. We'll cover 10%. That's the best we can do. That's the sort of thing that you're going to get with a nationalized rental industry. That's about all. Peace out.